Aso Rock, on fire, as Nnamdi Kanu receives a major good news. The national political chessboard has been set on fire, and the corridors of power in Abuja are filled with unfolding chaos. Just when the administration of President Bola Tinubu believed it had permanently stabilized one of the country's most volatile political and security crises by securing a life sentence against IPOB leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a sudden, devastating countermove shattered their illusion of total control. The authorities quietly celebrated what they thought was a final victory for state power, believing the cell door had slammed shut on the narrative for good. But they completely miscalculated the audacity of the nation's most resilient political strategist. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar did not just issue a passive statement from his villa. He staged a high-stakes ambush that completely hijacked the government's script, boarding a private jet and flying directly into the heart of the northern political establishment to the heavily guarded walls of Sokoto Prison. Word of this move traveled straight back to Abuja like a lightning bolt, leaving the inner circle scrambling in absolute shock. To fully understand the urgency gripping the presidency, you must look at the context surrounding this historic escalation. For over a decade, the figure of Nnamdi Kanu has loomed massive over national politics, representing a complex nexus of regional agitation, constitutional crises, and severe security challenges. From his initial arrest in 2015 to his highly controversial international rendition from Kenya in 2021, the state had spent immense resources to bring him to a definitive judgment. When the Federal High Court in Abuja finally read out the guilty verdict on multiple counts of terrorism-related charges, it was intended to be the ultimate exhibition of federal power. The administration wanted this severe life sentence to be a clear deterrent to any faction challenging the sovereignty of the republic. But a judicial finality does not automatically translate into political stability. While prosecutors celebrated in Abuja, a heavy, uneasy silence fell over major cities in the southeast, punctuated by fears of deepened alienation. What the administration failed to anticipate was that their primary political adversary was watching this exact vulnerability, waiting for the perfect moment to exploit the cracks in the state's approach. The immediate question that left political commentators and security analysts completely baffled was the sheer geography of Atiku's move. Why Sokoto Prison? Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is a leader whose entire struggle, base of operations, and ideological support are rooted deeply in the southeast. His trial took place in the central capital of Abuja. Sokoto, situated in the extreme northwestern corner of the country, represents the historic seat of the caliphate, the very heartland of conservative northern power. It is geographically and culturally as far removed from the Biafran agitation as humanly possible. But in the high-stakes game of political chess, geography is never random. Atiku's decision to base his response out of Sokoto Prison is a profound masterstroke of political symbolism. By selecting a high-profile federal maximum security prison in the far north, Atiku forcefully dragged the crisis right into the backyard of the northern elite. He deliberately walked into the core territory of the caliphate to execute a move that directly challenges the federal government's handling of a southeastern leader, demonstrating that the current presidency does not hold an absolute monopoly on the nation's institutional influence. As the details of Atiku's journey leaked, the operation crystallized into what insiders are calling the ultimate escalation. Behind the heavy, reinforced doors of the Sokoto facility, away from the prying eyes of mainstream journalists, Atiku engaged in a highly sensitive, face-to-face confrontation with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu inside the visitor's block. This marked the first time a preeminent northern leader had directly bridged the geographical and ideological chasm to sit across from the spearhead of the self-determination movement. During this intense exchange, Atiku explicitly condemned the federal government's use of an iron-fisted life sentence, reassuring Kanu that burying a deeply rooted regional grievance behind prison walls was a catastrophic error that would inevitably fracture the country's peace. Kanu, standing firm in his convictions, made it clear that his stance has always been a response to systemic injustice and structural marginalization, warning that Abuja's heavy-handed strategy would only solidify the Southeast's total alienation from the state. The historic meeting culminated in a strategic understanding, with Atiku pledging to use his massive political network to challenge the regime's judicial warfare and force a political solution. Immediately after exiting, Atiku's camp dispatched a direct communication straight to the desks of top administration officials in Abuja, giving the government a 24-hour window to reassess the dangerous security implications of their hardline stance before a broader, coordinated political opposition was mobilized against them. This high-stakes move immediately exposed deep, dangerous fractures within the political foundation of northern Nigeria, the very region President Tinubu desperately needs to maintain stable governance and secure his long-term survival. The region's ruling elite quickly split into two deeply divided camps. Pro-establishment factions fiercely argued that the North must remain totally loyal to the federal government's security mandates, warning that any alignment with an opposition leader showing sympathy to a separatist figure was an unpardonable political betrayal. Conversely, a growing dissident faction within the caliphate secretly agreed with Atiku, questioning whether Tinubu's heavy-handed strategy was actively making the country more unstable and pushing it toward a prolonged, costly domestic conflict. This internal ideological civil war has left the presidency completely vulnerable, turning their secure northern political fortress into a highly volatile battleground. At its core, this entire drama is the opening salvo of a long-term campaign to completely dismantle Tinubu's path to re-election in 2027. By actively engaging with the fallout of Kanu's life sentence, Atiku is executing a highly sophisticated dual regional strategy. In the southeast, a region deeply impacted by the finality of the Kanu verdict, Atiku is trying to position himself as a champion of justice, signaling to voters that under his leadership, the rigid, iron-fisted approach will end and genuine dialogue will begin. Simultaneously, by anchoring this strategy out of Sokoto, he is shoring up his core strength among his primary base in the north, proving that actual grassroots influence remains fluid and susceptible to opposition mobilization. Atiku is attempting to build an unprecedented cross-regional alliance, fusing the deep structural power of the North with the intense political grievances of the Southeast into a single opposition front to completely challenge the current administration's hold on power. Inside Aso Rock, the atmosphere has shifted from initial shock to intense, late-night urgency. Top political strategists and national security advisors are meeting behind closed doors, trapped between two equally dangerous options. Launching an aggressive media campaign to brand Atiku as an unpatriotic opportunist risks backfiring catastrophically, potentially validating his narrative and making him look like a courageous dissident fighting a repressive state apparatus. On the other hand, staying silent allows Atiku to control the narrative completely. The high-stakes power struggle over the fate of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is accelerating a systemic polarization across the entire country, transforming the major institutions of the state from the federal judiciary to maximum security correctional facilities into frontline battlefields for political supremacy. The grand political chessboard of Nigeria stands completely frozen in a moment of supreme tension. Atiku Abubakar has executed his opening masterstroke with flawless tactical efficiency, using the fortified walls of Sokoto Prison to deliver a devastating challenge to the federal government's authority. But the current commander-in-chief is a master political survivor who will not back down from a fight. The silence emanating from Aso Rock is the calculated silence of a leadership preparing a massive, deliberate counteroffensive. As the battle lines deepen from the courtrooms of Abuja to the maximum security gates of Sokoto, the fight for ultimate political dominance over the nation has officially entered its most dangerous, unpredictable phase, and the true master plan is only just beginning to unfold.